Now again, I'm going to let you decide how fancy you want to get with these because, you know, at the end of the day, in next unit, we're going to be drawing over these things. So I wouldn't worry too much about blocking in clothing or armor or anything like that because this is stuff you can add later. But feel free to, you know, knock out as much of this as you want. So you can save this off as a blockout variant. And then if you're ready to start working on this, what I would do is I'd break this up into chunks that I want to work on it with. So I'm going to do Control-Shift-A. I'm going to split these off. The arms I like to work on separately. So I'm going to hold down Control-Shift, grab all the arms. And the hands, if I'm going to use Dynamesh or just start sculpting on them, I like to keep the hands separate as well. Not forever, but just while I'm working, and then the legs, I'll go ahead and split that off as well. So for example, if I want to start blocking in this head a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and turn on Dynamesh here. So we're going to Dynamesh this down. And depending on how large you're working, and hopefully if you turn on floor, you are working Z forward. And then we can have X symmetry turn on. We can start blocking this out. So I'm going to raise the intensity up a bit. I'm going to turn my lazy radius up a bit, and then I'm going to tap L to turn it off, because while I'm blocking out stuff, I don't need to have that on. I'm also going to turn off mask by polygroups back down to 0. So now I can start blocking this in. And again, you could start out with as many shapes as you want. If you want to put in a bunch of shapes for the face, absolutely feel free to do that. We started out, you know, pretty simple, so we can just go through here and we can just use our move brush and then just start blocking this out here. And again, this is just like sketching, so I'm just going to kind of put in the detail, just kind of indicating detail where I need it. Use my clay brush, my move brush, my Damien standard, and my standard brush here. It's going to dig in where the eye sockets would go. And again, we're always working in the round. We're always kind of tumbling around. We're kind of seeing and evaluating. And if it's always work at the lowest resolution you can for your asset. So if I go down here, we can drop this down to maybe 32. Let's see how bad this gets. That's a little too low. 56, 104. That's good. And again, depending on if you have a library of assets you're pulling from, you could just, you know, keep your ears nice and pull them in later. I'm just going to kind of block out the basic shapes for the ears here. And if we're going to have like a sternal-mastoid, you can use the clay brush and bump up the intensity, or go to your clay buildup or your clay tubes, and you can use that. I'm going to drop that intensity down a bit. You know, and where things are going to pinch or leave skin folds, you can go ahead and indicate that as well. And again, it's not taking a lot of time or doing it really nicely just yet. We'll have plenty of time for that as the class progresses. But for now, what we're going through is we're just kind of blocking in these face shapes and trying to get the big idea here. So we're going to put that Adam's apple in there, the under the neck fat. If you want his jaw to come back a little bit more, we can. We can indicate some eyeballs here. You can always insert eyeballs like we did in the Unit 1 here, but I'm just going to kind of indicate, you know, some eye bags and some eyeballs here. Again, we're just kind of in sketch mode here. Just keep it nice and cheap, not precious at all. And even if he has a mustache here, we can kind of indicate a mustache here, maybe with the standard brush or the clay brush here. So we can kind of put in some, maybe a mustache like this. And we're going to make sure his eyes are back far enough. And we're stepping from his brow. We're going to give him a nice big brow ridge. And then we're going to alt-tap his body here. And same thing, let's drop that resolution down. Blur off, Dynamesh. Let's make sure this blur is off for the Dynamesh. Yeah, it is. So now that this is all Dynameshed, again, you could have put in all the muscles and, you know, collarbones and pecs and all that good stuff here, but I'm just going to kind of indicate it with sculpting here. So we can just kind of indicate, you know, where the pecs would go. And he's not a super bodybuilder looking type. He's a little bit dumpier than that, so I'm going to put some fat deposits down here. I'll kind of soften him out, soften out his middle here and his traps. Really are going to go up to the back of his head here, but I'm just going to kind of leave these down. I can merge these together later. And again, we don't need to worry about clothing right now. We're going to get some new tools under our belt in later classes where we can kind of figure that stuff out a little bit better, but we can sketch clothes over him. I'll show you that in just a second. And right down his back here, I'm just going to put a big divot for his spine. And then we can kind of sculpt out his butt a little bit. Got his obliques. And we'll tackle the arms now. So again, we'll drop that resolution down just a little bit, Dynamesh this together. And now we can go into solo mode here if we need to push those underarms back up just a little bit. We know his delts are going to attach to his collarbone, and then around here, and then back up to his scapula. So we can kind of dial that in. And then we can go back through with our clay brush. And again, I'm not going to make this guy super jacked or anything. I don't think his arms are going to be too fat. He carries most of his weight around his middle here. But we can kind of indicate, you know, some musculature, just not over musculature. And, you know, we'll do variants where we can make him overly muscular. It's not a real big deal. So we can go through here. And then there's his elbow here, so again, his triceps are going to be built up a little bit. And this isn't really an anatomy class. If you guys want to talk anatomy, we can certainly get into it. It's always fun. So for your personal feedback, if you want me to touch on that with your personal projects, I can certainly give you some pointers. But just while we're doing this real quick, we've got the lateral and the medial epicondyle here of the humerus. So we're just going to indicate his brachioradialis kind of going up here, and that's going to tuck behind the brachialis here, and that's where the triceps are going to kind of dig in here. So we can kind of indicate where those are, and we're also going to we'll use H polish because I want to make this wrist nice and boxy here, and then we can smooth that out a little bit. So this is going to be where the tendons are, and that's where your wrist gets kind of boxy here, and then it kind of flares out to kind of a turkey leg, chicken leg kind of thing here. So again, spend as much or as little time as you want kind of blocking this out, and you can always find time to refine. Right now I'm just trying to get the major forms going in here, like, okay, so you've got, and also looking for like the flow. It's going, you know, traps, back to his belly, back to his butt, to his thighs, to his calves. So you're always looking for, you know, deltoids to biceps here, and then you know what, we can clean this up a little bit. So it's going to be deltoids are going to come across here, and the biceps are going to come in, and your brachiobrachialis, and your triceps here, and then the deltoids are going to come around to the front here, and then this is all triceps, and then it gets into your teres major and teres minor and all that good stuff on the back. You know, and again, this isn't going to be an anatomy class or anything like that, but again, just looking for the major primary forms here. And also, since we're doing a superficial sculpt, you know, getting some reference on how fat collects and where your pinching and your squashing and your stretching is going to be would be good for this guy as well. But like major landmarks here, we can dial in that medial epicondyle. We'll put a little bump here, and then his flexors are going to kind of bulge below that. And then again, it's going to go to a kind of a thinner area here. And once you make a bunch of hands, you can again save these in your library. Now, if I dynamesh these right now, it's just going, it might have a tendency, especially if they're thick and close together, they'll have a tendency to stick. So what I might do with these hands instead of dynameshing is just go ahead and start subdividing. So I'm going to go down to my deformation menu. I'm going to run just a slight polish just to kind of relax those a little bit. And then we're going to hit Control D. Oops. I undid back where I had a little extra piece on there. So now I'm under geometry. If I hit Control D, that's going to be like hitting the divide button. And now I can go through here and I can start massing out like, okay, we can square out these knuckles a little bit. And all that good stuff. And start making these look right. And under, so it looks like I undid back to where I didn't have a close hole, or I forgot to. So what I can do is I can go down to subdivision level 1. I can freeze subdivision levels. I can hover over this hole here. I can go close convex hole. I go ahead and close that hole. Let's go ahead and make it one polygroup. And then actually we'll make the whole thing one polygroup. And then I'm going to unfreeze, and that's going to add the subdivision level back, project my details, and close that hole. So that's what freeze, one of the ways that freeze subdivision levels can come in handy for simple stuff like that. For the forearm here, I'm going to match that to the hand a little bit better. And then the hand, I can alt tap the hand here, and we can kind of match this one a little bit better, so you can kind of get that blocky wrist going, and then make sure you have the curve of the hand this way, and all that good stuff. So again, spend as much or as little time as you want refining this thing, merging these things together, and getting a nice base body going, and then next we'll talk about blocking out other things.